a seat. We're going to get started here. Thanks for coming tonight. Good evening to everyone. We're happy to be here tonight. I am Fire Chief Dan Stefano, your fire chief, and we've got our police chief Ron Lawrence here. We just wanted to welcome you on behalf of the city. This is our second in a series of town halls we're going to have as it relates to community preparedness. And we're thankful to be here at Estancia High School. Our thanks to Estancia and to the Newport Mesa Unified School District. Before we go any further, just want to introduce a few folks that are here, and you'll get a chance to meet and see present tonight, and afterwards have that opportunity to ask questions. So we look forward to a number of different topic areas we're going to cover for this evening. But I'd like to start off and just acknowledge Councilmember Arliss Reynolds, who's here.
Class of 2002, go Eagles.
2002 Estancia, and I've got to go straight to Captain Elder Maldonado, another Estancia graduate, and he heads up our fire cadet program, and we'll be talking a little bit about that a bit later on. But I think class of 2001? 2001, so nice little competition there. You'll be hearing from a number of our fire team tonight, and so we're excited. You're going to hear different perspectives. We've got Assistant Fire Chief of Operations Jason Pyle, Assistant Fire Chief and Fire Marshal John Neal. We'll be talking about the fire maps. You're going to hear from Battalion Chief Tim Vasson. Chief Basson's going to speak a little bit about our most recent response. We had resources that went to the Palisades Fire and the Eden Fire, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And it was really the impetus to get this going as far as the community town hall for the community preparedness. So we are certainly excited about that. We also have Ben Castillo, who's here today with us. And he's here to make sure we have any bilingual needs in the audience, so we can connect with Ben as far as that goes. We appreciate that. We've got Paul Shoenberger from Mesa Water District, General Manager. You're going to hear some great information in terms of the infrastructure after the fire. Is one of the questions that we received, and most of the cities, the 483 cities in California received, are how's the infrastructure in your city? How's it in your town? And Costa Mesa is solid with all of our infrastructure, and water being one of those, so we'll be able to talk a little bit and hear from Paul, and we look forward to that. It's a great presentation. We also have a number of city staff here, so I want to thank everyone who's helped bring this together. Brock Howard is here, Matt Vito. We've got a number of folks. Yes, please. And the featured presenter tonight that you'll hear, and we kind of warmed the floor up a little bit for, is Delcie Hynes, our emergency manager. We're excited. She's got over 20 years in emergency management, and she's really the point person for us here in the city, and she's really just stepped in and hit the ground running. So again, we've got a lot to cover tonight. We're going to do it in a nice soft fashion, and in a way that everyone's able to engage. We'll hit some points in time as we move through topics, so if we don't have a chance to have a robust Q&A during the presentation, following the presentation, we'll make sure there's opportunities for conversation and dialogue, so we're excited about that. Also want to acknowledge from Public Works, Song Yang, who's hiding in the back. Song. And again, community preparedness for us as a city, it's an integrated effort. It requires leadership from our elected officials, leadership from the city manager's office, and really from every single department throughout the city to work together. There's not anything that we do when we talk about emergency preparedness that doesn't touch one or another department within the city. And that goes from our finance team to our information technology team, public works, our development services. Everyone has to be on the same page, and we rely on each other for that. And then most importantly, the connection we have with the community, and that's why we're so excited to be here tonight, to interact with the community and hear from the community, but also share with the community. So that's a very important piece for us tonight. So with that, I want to turn it over for some opening words from our police chief and my good friend, Police Chief Ron Lawrence.
Thank you. Well, I'll keep my comments brief, but I just want to say a big thank you to my friend and my fire chief here, Dan Stefano. You know, we have an incredible city team here, and oftentimes in communities, what you see on the outside is police and fire and public works all working independently. But the truth is, we all work very coordinated together. Yes, in our daily operations, we have things that we do, but when it comes to emergencies, we are lockstep together in managing that emergency. Sometimes it's fire is the primary, sometimes it's police if it's a civil or a man-made disaster, a civil unrest type of situation. Sometimes it's public works if it's a sinkhole or a flood situation. What we do in the incident command system is take the best experts we have to manage that, and we wrap around all of our city resources around it. And I really want to thank our city council and our mayor for the support and the emphasis on public safety, because in Costa Mesa, as you'll hear our fire team express, the cooperation and the preparedness is just really phenomenal. But you're a big part of that, and you've got to know what we are and how we operate and be a part of our city team, because in those times of emergency, those times of disaster, there might be times when we can't get to you quickly and you have to be prepared for yourself. I watched a show on Netflix last night about the Oklahoma bombing, which, as you know, happened a long time ago, 1995, I believe. In those moments of crisis, when something like that happens, a disaster, emergency personnel might not be able to get to you. And so having your cooperation and your resilience and your preparedness really is key, sometimes to survival, and certainly for us helping to mitigate that emergency. But here in Costa Mesa, I just want to reiterate that with our emergency manager, Delcie Hynes, and the emphasis the city council has put on public safety, we really have a safe community. Do we get it right all the time? No. Do we have lessons learned? Always. But what we're always promising to do is being the absolute best that we can be and always learning to get better every day. So with that, thank you, and I just want to reiterate to our fire chief what a pleasure it is to work with you. Our police and fire teams really do work collaboratively together, so thank you and your teams.
And for those of you that don't know, Chief Lawrence has announced his retirement, so he'll be leaving in June, and he's been an incredible asset to the city, and like I said, just a great partner for everyone. Our thanks again to the City Council. Again, we just spoke about being able to carry out business as a city. And being able to do the different things we do, particularly for public safety, which is always a priority. And the council has made it clear that it is a priority. And it's one thing to commit to that, it's another to actually put the resources towards that and consistently support the efforts. It's something we talk with our public safety personnel. We've got incredible men and women professionals that carry out incredible work. 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. But they can't do the job if they don't have the tools, and we have certainly been provided the tools to do the jobs. And so when we talk about, which we'll hear a little later, what are the most concerning pieces of the wildfires that took place, one question that came up, we talked about the infrastructure for the city. The other, do you have the tools? Do we have the fire engines? And the answer is yes. Here in Costa Mesa, we're very fortunate. We have apparatus, and our emergency apparatus, the cost for one fire engine is over $1 million now. And so it takes funding for that. Those apparatus, those pieces of equipment that are lifesavers for us and for serving the community, they need to last 15 years. And so we take very good care of those. But we also, again, when you're talking about multiple fire engines, we're talking about millions of dollars. When you're talking about infrastructure and the different fire stations and police stations and City Hall, we need to make sure that those are up to date. Well, we had a new fire station that went into work in 2018, our Fire Station 1. A multi-million-dollar project, but again, 60 years is the lifespan on that. And so that commitment we appreciate is a commitment that the community takes part in. And again, we want to hear from you, but we also want to show you what it does, and it allows us to carry out the job that we want to do, which is protect you as the citizens of the community that we have here. The other pieces that came up, we were talking about larger community preparedness. That ranges from the large wildfires that we have. We're going to look at, Delcie's going to speak to what are the target emergencies that we realistically are going to have here in Costa Mesa or that will impact us in Costa Mesa. We won't necessarily be impacted directly by a tsunami, but the indirect impacts of people coming in for evacuations, those are impacts. So Delcie will speak to that. But also tonight is not just about the larger emergencies that are coming, but what could happen to you as an individual if you have an emergency at your house. If we come to your house as a police department or the fire department, that emergency for you, if it happens once in your lifetime, that's a traumatic event. And so we're going to talk about some different things because ultimately it comes down to you as an individual. What can you do to prepare yourself that will help you, but will also help the community at large? So we're going to look at the large and the small and talk about all those different emergencies. The last thing I'll talk about before I turn it over here to Battalion Chief Tim Basson, we respond to wildfires and all types of emergencies up and down the state. California has one of the most robust master mutual aid programs anywhere in the nation and probably in the world. And what that means is in the state of California, when a large emergency takes place, we're able to utilize and tap into resources from different counties, from different cities. And so frequently, if there's a large emergency here in California anywhere, Costa Mesa will have a presence on that emergency. And the reason being is we've trained for it, we've prepared for it, but we've also committed ourselves to that. And here in California, and here in Orange County, there's a few agencies that have apparatus from the California State Office of Emergency Services. So an engine that's dedicated to the city, provided by the state, we staff those apparatus, those engines, when they get sent. The city's reimbursed, and so it ends up being a positive for the city. Costa Mesa not only has one, over the course of the past 10 years, we've acquired not just 2, but 3 of those. And those are assignments you have to apply for. You have to show that you've got the personnel. You've got to show that you have the skills and competency. And so we have 3 of those resources. So again, if there's a large emergency in California, we're going to go ahead and assist in those different areas. The same way that we'll have resources come from different areas and assist us. And that goes also outside of California, where we get resources coming in. And again, the impetus for this being the wildfires. So I'm going to go right into Chief Basson here in a moment, the wildfires that took place. We had the Palisades fire that took place up in Los Angeles. And then on the heels of that, we had the Eaton fire at the same time in Altadena. We also had a number of smaller fires that obviously weren't the highest level of impact as those were. But those 2 fires we had resources on. In Orange County, with 34 cities, the vast majority of representatives from the different agencies in Orange County, from fire and law enforcement you'll hear plays a huge role in these emergencies, particularly when it comes to evacuations. But we sent resources immediately up to those incidents, to both the Palisades and the Eaton fires. Battalion Chief Tim Basson was on the Eaton fire with Altadena. He was a strike team leader, and he led a group of 5 engines from throughout Orange County. And so to kick this off, I just want to show and give you that perspective. What is that first look of an emergency? And this is just one type of emergency, and we'll let Chief Basson talk about it. But I want you to just take a look and listen. This is from the most early moments of the fire here. And actually, to tee it up, the first slide is the Palisades fire. This is from the visual and audio view of Orange County Fire Authority helicopter, a partner of ours, as they came in and they were doing some of the early assessments of the Palisades fire.
Orange County Copter 76, January 7th, 2025, 1400 hours on the Palisade fire, starting at the right shoulder, impacting down towards Highway 1, Palisade community. Multiple copters doing structure protection by the Getty Villa, working down in that area, coming back up the right flank towards the heel now. Multiple structures impacted. Got retardant operations going on at the heel of the fire. Multiple air tankers, Bravo ship, air attack on.
So this was the opening moments of the Palisades fire, and this is one of the different resources that are available to us, and they're not just in the county but statewide, that we'll send. So we're able to get intelligence to tell us how we can best respond to the fire. We have the capability for night operations. So a lot of technology that now is in our public safety tool chest to actually go after these fires and get resources there, but in the right spots and to manage it. And we have a very complex but very well coordinated organizational system, the incident management system that lets us actually impact these. This next one will be Chief Basson. I'll bring him up. This is actually as they're driving through to the initial impact of the Eaton fire, the initial areas that they went and visited, and they started to conduct emergency operations. So with that, Chief Basson, I'll bring you up.
John, Brush 1, Transport 8.
With that, I'll turn it over to Chief Basson to give you kind of that perspective of coming into an incident and trying to manage it with a group of individuals. The first 12 to 24 hours of an incident, in this case, the first 12 hours, there's a lot of chaos that goes on, so trying to have the greatest impact, and our greatest priority is always life. We want to save lives, and then it's property, and then we move into other areas, but life is always our priority in terms of saving life, and then we get into property. So with that, I'll turn it over to Battalion Chief Tim Basson, longtime 3-decade veteran for us here in the city. And with that, Chief Basson.
Thank you, Chief. So Tim Basson, I'm duty battalion chief, and for those that don't know, here in Costa Mesa we have 6 firehouses. We have 1 duty battalion chief that's on duty every day, 24/7, and our job is we run the daily operations, the 24-hour shift operations here for the City of Costa Mesa Fire Services. And so after the Eaton fire, a lot of questions came up in regards to emergency preparedness and actually how do we as the fire department respond to these big emergencies, natural disasters here throughout the state. And as Chief said, the state of California has a very robust mutual aid program, best in the nation, probably because we have the biggest natural disasters, mostly wildfires, but not all wildfires, earthquakes, floods, all kinds of other things, hurricanes now sometimes. But because we have such a robust system, we have planned apparatus and planned resources every day, 365. So when I show up to work every day, I know that if something, natural disaster happens in the city, I know if I'm going to be deploying with one of our fire engines or fire crews and other fire crews throughout the county of Orange, I know that I'm going to be the strike team leader and we're going to deploy if that happens. And so every day I come to shift, I know I could get deployed, I could not get deployed, and obviously when Santa Ana winds events are predicted, there's a high likelihood in the state of California that there's going to be a fire, and so I know, hey, maybe I could be deployed today on a wildland fire. And so that was the case here with the Eaton fire. We knew the Santa Ana winds were coming. We had planned strike teams, and as Chief mentioned, a strike team is 5 fire engines and 1 battalion chief. That's what we call a strike team. And the battalion chief is a strike team leader, and my responsibility is to be in command of all of those 5 fire engines, and we deploy as a team up to whatever that natural disaster is. And so in this case, we got dispatched about 9:15 p.m. to the Eaton fire, which was out in Altadena. The Palisades fire was already going, and a lot of resources were already being sent to the Palisades fire. The Eaton fire started after that, and so we got the call, and within a half an hour of getting the call, I was at the fire training center over by Anaheim Stadium. It's called the North Net Fire Training Center, which was a central meeting location. I was there. We took one of our state fire engines here in Costa Mesa with our Costa Mesa fire crew. We drove to that fire training location, and we met 4 other fire engines from other fire departments here in Orange County. And again, everybody knew who they were going to be. We train together. We all know each other's expectations, so we seamlessly get together, and then we get orders to wherever we're going to go. In this case, my order was we're going to go to the Rose Bowl, which was the incident command post for the Eaton fire. We checked into the Rose Bowl to the incident commander, and then from that point, the incident commander says, I need you to go to this geographical location and check in with another person that's in charge of that geographical location. So in our case, that's what we did. Next thing you know, we're in the eastern flank of the Eaton fire, which was the town of Sierra Madre. If anybody's familiar with Sierra Madre, it's above Arcadia, just east of Pasadena in the foothills there. And so by the time we got there, we were responsible for about 5 city blocks, maybe a half a square mile in total. And this is what I saw when I first got there. So I got there, there's probably about 300 houses total in these 5 square blocks that I had the responsibility for, and probably half of them were on fire. And I had 5 fire engines. And so as Chief said, my job in those situations is life safety. And so what we do immediately is we partner with our law enforcement agencies, and just like the fire department, the law enforcement agencies are doing the same thing. They're getting law enforcement officers from all the surrounding areas, and we do a quick meeting and we decide law enforcement don't go into a burning building, but they go into anything that's not burning, and they make sure that those places are evacuated. We, with only having 5 fire engines and lots of houses on fires, we can't take the time to try to go into every house and see if everybody's evacuated, because it would progress the fire and we would have no recourse as far as the fire progression is concerned. So we partner with our law enforcement agency, and they do that piece of it. And then what I have to do is prioritize life safety. Is there anybody trapped? Is there anybody that's non-ambulatory that couldn't get out of the house? And working with our law enforcement agency to try to figure out that plan. If there is somebody, then we go directly to that and try to fix that problem. And then the second thing is, how do we eliminate the progression of the fire. Well, in this case, you can't eliminate the progression of the fire, so you have to try to pick and choose. Houses that are on fire, we can't really do much to, so we try to pick a house that maybe is in between the other houses that are on fire, and we try to protect those houses. Challenges like this when you have 70-mile-an-hour winds is people don't think about is if you just try to take a garden hose and a 5-mile-an-hour breeze and you squirt it upwind, what's going to happen? The water's going to hit you in the face, right? So even with our powerful fire hoses with 70-mile-an-hour winds, we can't squirt the water into the wind. So even if this house is on fire and we have a fire engine parked in front of it, but we're trying to squirt water upwind, it's not going to work. So we have to try to position ourselves downwind and squirt water downwind. So all those kind of challenges is what we were up against on this fire. And so we prioritized. I basically dedicated one fire engine to one city street. Each city street had probably 30 to 35 houses on it between both sides of the streets. But we were up against, like you saw in this video, that was actually a city street I was trying to drive down, but the smoke and the fire was so thick I couldn't even see down the street. In some cases, the wind was blowing flames from a house that was on fire, and the flames were literally going across the street and impacting and touching the house across the street. And so then that house would start catching fire. So our firefighters, with 800 gallons of water on the fire engine, they would do their best, and then the fire engine would run out of the water. They'd have to go find the fire hydrant, fill that fire engine up with water, and then try to get back before the house next to the one that was on fire didn't catch fire. And then we did that for 36 hours. And so it was a tough time, and then essentially once the wind calmed down, sometime mid-morning the next day, we were able to start catching up with the fires and at least stopping the spread from house to house. But we were there for 36 hours on the fire line trying to keep those 5 city blocks from every house burning. I think we saved 20 houses, and there's about roughly 300 total in that area. And so, yeah, it was pretty devastating. So how does that tie in with emergency preparedness here in the city and for you guys? Number one, and Delcie's going to cover this, but number one is be prepared and have a plan. And when it's time to evacuate, evacuation is key. If you can't evacuate, then you need to be able to have a plan to communicate with law enforcement or public safety that you can't evacuate so we can come and get you. Because what we can't afford to do in these emergencies, when we have such limited resources, is worry about somebody that's not prepared, doesn't have a plan, and doesn't want to leave. Because now my worry is going to be focused on you and not the rest of the problem. And so I'll be around here if you have any more questions, but that's basically my day, and then we were there for 12 days after that. So we were deployed on that for 12 straight days and helping out the community after the fire. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Chief. And again, we're talking about fire now. We're gonna talk a little bit more about fire, and then we're gonna talk about our infrastructure with Mesa Water, and then we're gonna finish up again just so we all kind of know the pathway we're going on for the rest of it tonight. We're not trying to overtake with fire, but again, it was kind of it's what initiated this conversation. We had some great input from our community that said, "Hey, what about a town hall?" and which was something that's very important for us to engage. The other piece with the fire, and Chief Aston alluded to it, you have to have an experience and you've got to have a solid skill set. And so our command staff and our captains, I can tell our command staff, we've got over 150 years of experience. So that experience, those are things you learn on different emergencies, whether it's a fire incident, whether it's an active shooter, active threat incident, all those different things. And again, that collaboration piece is so important. And so we're talking about response. What we're going to look at now is what can we do in advance. We're talking about preparations. So I'm going to bring up Assistant Chief John Neal, our Fire Marshal, and Assistant Chief Jason Pyle. One thing that the state of California has done, and we do every so often, I think 2008 was the last time, we established fire maps for the state of California and identify high fire hazard severity zones, very high fire hazard severity zones, and you break it into different categories, and that's going to create some different needs in terms of the different communities you have. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our 2 assistant chiefs here, and we'll tap right into the fire maps for California.
So, good evening, everybody. John Neal, Assistant Fire Chief, Fire Marshal. I get to guide our Fire Prevention and Community Production Division, the other half of the fire department. So we don't respond to fires, but we help set them up for success, do enforcement of fire code, and a lot of our pre-planning events. So about a month ago now, March 24th, we received the new map updates from the State Fire Marshal's Office. So they did a phased rollout of different zones and each agency throughout the state. And we received ours, along with most of Southern California, where we received some new classifications of a few areas in the city, as you can see on the map here. Primarily Talbot Park South and the residential structures in and around that. And then we have around Fairview Park. The yellow is what's considered moderate, which is the lower classification. And then the orange is high. And as Chief said, we also have a very high classification that's more reserved for what you would see in Newport Coast or Silverado Canyon, or some of the larger mountainous areas that we kind of think about or have thought about in the past as wildland urban interface areas. So, a more traditional cabin in the woods that's much harder to protect, and that's what we really built the codes around. So as Chief spoke about, really dating back to the 90s were the first codes that we started to implement in wildland areas. And in the early 2000s, we started learning from some of the fires in Central California, and also, 10, 15 years ago in Central California, some of the larger fires that we had. And so they implemented fire hazard severity zones. What we've realized more recently, and we saw in these fires that were highlighted tonight, is it's starting to now creep into the urban interface, right? So with the higher winds, it doesn't just stop as we used to see, 1 block in, 2 blocks in. It's now spreading deeper and deeper. And so part of the state's modeling this time was to get a little bit more accurate, to rather than just use general topographical or weather data, they actually went specific to within 2 kilometers of each area that they were analyzing, and did their assessment that they did. So this is what we received, this is what was transmitted to us, and here's kind of a highlight of what we look at for zones. So, kind of already hit on the very high, but really what they're looking at is the vegetation size, the distance to actual wildland areas, the ember production based on vegetation type, ember transport based on wind speed, and then where the moderate high and very high kind of band around each other. So, you can kind of see there how there's going to be moderate around high just because of the way that the fire could potentially behave based on the load that's in that area. Here's a picture on the left-hand side. It's kind of a zoomed out version of what Orange County looks like. So this gives you a little bit of perspective. As I spoke about, you can kind of see Newport Coast, Laguna has a lot of that red very high. The dashed line is actually state responsibility area, so that's also very high, and it's going to have much more restrictive building and fire code requirements. And then, some development requirements that may require 2 ways out of a development of more than 20 units. Some things that we're going to do to try to limit the amount of time it's going to take to egress from those areas. And then you can see as we go again through South Orange County and up around Silverado Canyon, leading over to the other side, quite a bit of very high there. As we get to higher elevation, steeper terrain, more fuel loading that we're seeing outside of the urban. And then on the right-hand side is just a reference to this map here of what we're going to have here in Costa Mesa. So really the next steps for us, and this is just a kickoff meeting, as Chief said, wanted to highlight that this is a change that's coming, but we're going to be taking an ordinance to City Council. So within 120 days of receiving this, we need to take this map to City Council, review the current map, that this is the minimum requirement the state projected. We can't go any less strict than this map, so we can't just say, oh, we don't want any high in Costa Mesa. Just kidding, we want everything to be moderate. We think we know better. This is the minimum standard. We can go more restrictive, but with that becomes some potential future code requirements. So as we're going to be going into code adoption that we do every 3 years at the end of this year, there may be some code changes for high or moderate to try to limit that risk. If there is a fire in the area, maybe it's more resistive roofing materials, or maybe it's boxed eaves so we don't allow embers to come in. Some different preventative measures we can do through building construction to limit the impacts of a future hazard. So we have published this on our city website. I can help anyone navigate to the website. We did this through our GIS system, so you can actually put comments in and tag your location and where you're at as you put your comments in, and we'll make sure to include those in our council agenda reports. And then we also have it in the city clerk's office if you want to file just a paper comment or pass it along to me. I'll make sure we include that in our staff report. But we published the maps, so we made sure to get that website up and host that in the clerk's area. We're conducting these outreach meetings, as well as obviously we'll take it to city council. And then we'll have an ordinance that we're going to propose through city council and have comment through the ordinance adoption process. So kind of a higher level highlight of what we received from the state. It's something new. As I said before this, we didn't have any classified areas because they were just using general modeling. So as they've gotten more specific, they really started, I think, identifying those really target areas based on past presence of fires and potential things that we've had here. So any other comments kind of related to that, Chief File?
One of the questions always comes up is operationally. How is this going to affect us? Well, as you see our map, this is Fairview Park, and this is the bottom side down at South Tower Park. Operationally, we already know this information. The medium and the low severity, it's nice that the state didn't code it as high severity, especially for the residents and the businesses in the surrounding area. But for us operationally, we're very familiar with these areas. We just had a fire in Fairview Park last weekend. They made fast work of it over a couple hours and got it snuffed out. The upper portion, all the sensitive habitat areas. This is the state's identification for the public that tells you these are the severity zones. But for us operationally, we're very aware of these areas. We're used to them. Our firefighters, our law enforcement, our public works, our parks are very used to them. So for us, this is for public outreach, showing what's going on within the burn zones. For us operationally, we're very comfortable with it. We know it's there, and we have a good handle on what will happen and what we're going to do if it does burn.
We also have a true spirit of collaboration with our Parks and Community Services Division. I was speaking with Kelly Dalton over the weekend, our Fairview Park administrator, speaking about the area specifically and some of the defensible space we already do around the exterior edges of the park and bordering these residential spaces. So we're pretty proactive already as a city in these areas. We will continue to be better and I think continue to improve as we learn from past fires. But just a note for you there.
Yeah, I had a question in terms of the public outreach with respect to this map. What kind of community input is helpful in terms of adopting the map?
So, as I said, it couldn't be any less restrictive. So it could be maybe you missed a concern and they have some piece of information that we haven't anticipated. Well, we can't just, I don't want to say wing it, but we can't also just say, hey, we actually want this map to be red, because we need some sort of justification to say, I think the state's model was wrong, and we actually have a fire history that's more severe than what's here. Or we've experienced much worse conditions than what you're assessing, and now we need to assign this. And we'd have to have a methodology of why we scientifically recommended that to be in excess of what the state recommended. So if there's comments, if there's someone's, we actually have really intelligent, I think, and educated members of the community that know about the parks and may have some insider knowledge or something that they experience every day while they're out there. And there may be something we're missing that says, hey, actually, I think we should expand this a little bit. Yeah. And so I think that would be a really engaging comment.
And I think that's a great point. And some of the nuances of parks, I know we've had conversations about Canyon Park, but anything that might be something that that we're aware of, you've lived here, you have an idea, just anything of that nature, we want to hear it. And if we have redundancy in the comments we get, it's better for us. If the comments don't necessarily reflect what we need for the mapping part, we want to take those comments, because again, we're constantly looking for any gaps we have in all the different things we do that we can close the gap. So that's a more important piece. And one thing I just want to touch on that Chief Neal shared, people ask, how are we? Because our fringe for the wildland, it's an urban interface, but that's the Fairview and Talbot Park pieces. And so for us, we do have those minimum pieces, which is 100 feet of clearance where we can. In some cases, it runs right into the Santa Ana River. There are some areas that are the responsibility of the property owners. So that's another piece too, where it doesn't actually become the city's responsibility, but it's the property owners. And those are more down towards the Banning Ranch area and there. But all of those different pieces are great conversations to have, because the city wants to be a good partner, but if it's your property, it's your responsibility. So those are things we're hoping when we continue to get out and talk about the fire maps, have those education pieces and share information. That's really what we're hoping to do. So getting back to the original, any comments are great comments from our perspective.
Yes.
How do maps dictate availability of resources? So obviously if it's a massive event, it's going to trigger the state or a federal declaration. Hopefully that never happens here. But do the maps actually inform the availability of resources or the speed of delivering resources?
So the short answer is no. The maps are a tool for us, but in terms of our emergency response, those are pre-established plans that are in place for every region. And so I'll actually turn it over to Chief Pyle if you want to just talk about more on the emergency response, not the maps, but emergency response.
Maps are a look back, and these are a projection, but a lot of them come from what we know and what has happened. And so when you look up through most of the state, we have what we call scar maps. And so you'll see the same burn patterns, the same climatical. Our topography doesn't really change. The mountains don't move left and they don't move right. The things they like to grow on them grow and they die, and it gets brown and then it burns. So our SCAR maps really are historical references that you can say predictability-wise, that we can say this is how it's going to burn, and when it does burn, and it always will burn, we know how fast, how far, where it will peak. You combine that with the weather and the vegetation, and maps become the tool to move the resources into position, to head it off, cut it off, stuff it out, do the airdrops if we're talking a retarded base like that. So the maps are really the tool, and we have hundreds and hundreds of maps of all over California, of scar burn areas. They are predictability, so when you roll in, you know where it's going to move. It always moves the same way.
You were also asking though about emergency response, if I heard you right. Were you asking?
like to our area?
More into mass care out of life safety, but understanding like, you know, based on these maps and the predictability of like what could happen, you know, how does that inform our ability to, you know, trigger CERT teams and those different kind of on nonprofits, like whatever kind of plans we have locally, how do these inform that, and how do you guys direct those conversations for coordination of mass care?
So that now he's sure you're going with mass care, and actually Delcie's going to get into it, so I'm not going to take the wind out of sails. The maps, not so much in terms of that piece of it. Really, it's dictated by the emergency itself, and that's the beauty of our incident management system. It allows us to expand exponentially and then come back and close it up, you know, depending on the emergency and getting the right resources there. Like you said, we're going to talk a little bit about CERT, our CERT program that we have here in the city. We have a class that's coming up, by the way. We have 4 spots left. It's next week. Just a little plug there for that. But what happens is once that initial incident gets established, like we looked at the Eaton fire, that incident we're starting to get the resources. What resources do we need to start the incident? And usually it's within that 24-hour time frame that we're able to say, hey, this is going to be a large incident. But again, like the Palisades fire, that had already started. The Eaton had started. We actually sent resources to 2 other fires, including the Hearst fire. And a lot of times there are other fires that are happening in other parts of the state. So it's making sure that we have the resources and basically it's making those decisions after about the 12 to 24-hour mark of whether we're going to go ahead and initiate a full CERT response or a partial CERT response. Delcie will speak about during all the fires going on, she actually went up after the fact to help out the city of Malibu. As a response, and that was more a result of what resources do we need. We don't want to just inundate an area and they don't need the resources, but we want to make sure they have enough. So it's really dictated by the incident, and it's driven by what the needs are of the incident.
And we'll be available after, obviously, for any questions, or if there's something more specific or targeted, we can do that. But I'll pass it over to Delcie Hynes.
Yeah, actually, Delcie's almost up. We're going to, as we're moving on, we're now transitioning in, and we're going to talk about the infrastructure. We started talking about what's the infrastructure we have here in the city. Do we have enough water if something happens in the city? What does that water look like? What's the setup for the city for water? And so we're fortunate enough to have great partnerships throughout a number of different areas within the city. As you look at Costa Mesa, that's something that's so special about Costa Mesa, the relationships we have with a range of stakeholders. And one of those stakeholders is Mesa Water District. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Paul Shoenberger, the General Manager for Mesa Water, who again is a great partner, but this is his round 2 with us, and he's shared his time and expertise. We're going to just get the PowerPoint loaded up, but if you want to just introduce yourself.
Sure, very much. Hi. Yep, Paul Shoenberger. I'm the General Manager at Mesa Water District, and we are the ones who provide the water to the community, to the businesses, to the residents, and to all the fire hydrants. You know, we're run by a 5-member elected board, and we do really appreciate the willing partnership that we would have with the city. Thank you. Yep, very good. With the staff of the city, with the police department and the fire department, we all work very well. I'm very impressed with how open and cooperative all the parties always are. So you know, good for our community doing that. Mesa Water District, we are responsible for the water in the area, and one of our board's key core values is to do our part in providing for the health and safety of the community. And when I think of the health of the community, what we do is we provide clean, you know, safe water. And we have a lot of efforts to make sure that all happens. As far as the safety of the community, I always just visualize a fire hydrant. Because you know, we maintain the fire hydrants and we keep them charged with water so that hopefully if they ever have to be used, that they will be there and they will be ready. So to do that, we need a robust water supply, which we have. We need all those facilities, and you need to maintain those facilities. And you learn about that in an emergency, how well you have maintained your facilities. Almost all of our facilities are invisible. They're underground, pipelines and valves. If we were to replace all of the pipes in our service area, it would cost more than $1 billion to replace that. So just, you know, just our little community, we've got a lot invested in the water system. And one great thing, I think you touched on it earlier, one good thing about our community, the way it's laid out topographically, is that it's flat. And then so that way we have one water zone, one pressure zone, so you put water anywhere in the system and it can flow everywhere else. Where sometimes you get into trouble are, you know, like the Laguna Beach fire or the fires in LA where you're up on these hills. So you got this flat area, but they have to pump water to a tank that will maybe serve up this hill, and then that tank pumps up into another tank. You know, so there's a lot of pieces that all have to work to make sure that there's water. In Costa Mesa, we're flat and we have just one big system. And we have lots of areas that we can bring water into the system. So we have 9 water wells to supply us water. Those are all in the north part. Don't know if you can see the small blue dots with the W on it. But those are active wells. We have that huge 30-inch green line that takes all that water down into the south part or the part near the ocean of Costa Mesa. That orange line is a huge imported water line that connects to yet a different system, a metropolitan water district. And then we also have along our edges, a lot of emergency connections with Santa Ana, Irvine, Newport Beach. And in addition to all that, we have 3 big reservoirs inside our system that have 2 days of water supply. So there's a lot of ways to get water into the system and a lot of ways to move it around. So this is just a little chart here, these 2 bars. This little blue one on the right, that is the average amount of water that our community uses every day. About 16 to 18 million gallons a day of water. And all of our supplies, if they were all maxed out, are on the left would be about 135 million gallons. So we have a lot more water available to us than we need. And these different bars these are our groundwater wells, and these are a different class of wells that we have. This is that imported water that comes straight through the middle of the city, and these are the emergency connections with our neighbors. So, you know, we've got a lot of water, a lot of way to move it all around in the city, which is a good thing. And you know, all your machinery needs to be working, and so we're connected to the Edison power system, but all of our pumps also have backup emergency generators that run on diesel. We operate every quarter, every 3 months, we will just switch off the power, make sure that our backup systems kick in and that they're operating, and then we'll operate it for 1 hour and then we'll turn it off again. So we've got 2 sources of power to make sure that everything runs in an emergency. And then those little dots, if you can see them, those are our 3,383 fire hydrants that are in the system. Every one of those is visited every year by a crew member, a 2-man crew member from Mesa Water. We make sure all the components are working. We operate the hydrant to make sure that it's working. Out of those 3,000 hydrants, we'll find maybe 20 that need to be either adjusted or replaced, and we'll replace those. And so we make sure that, you know, everything's working well. I got a lot of phone calls in January. Do our hydrants actually have water in them? Because people were worried. And the answer is yes, our hydrants do have water in it. So Costa Mesa, with our police and our fire and the city staff, everyone's working together very well, and we're prepared. So thank you very much.
And again, as we pray, thanks Paul for coming out. After the fires came, we received a lot of calls and a lot of parallels. People wanted to say, hey, that could happen here in Costa Mesa, the Palisades, and the Eden. And while we'll never say never, the reality is I was in Laguna Beach for 18 years before I came to Costa Mesa, and I've been here for over 11 years now. And the parallels have to be comparable. And Laguna Beach is literally as comparable you can get to the Palisades fire. And the challenges they had were with infrastructure, with access, with evacuation. And so those challenges they had, just like the Laguna fires, after you have any incident, we talked about it up here, lessons learned. What did we learn from the incident? Because we're always going to have gaps. What did you learn from it, and what can you do to improve to make sure it never happens again? And so in the case of Laguna Beach, they infused a lot of funding and a lot of technology into the resources they had. They included new pumps in different areas because they have to move water. The capacity, they didn't have the capacity of large tanks to access. That was a problem in the Palisades fire. The access to get in and out, they didn't have identifiable routes to evacuate people. And then the other piece that Delcie will talk about, communication. We want to make sure that we as city officials, as public safety, are able to get information out to you as soon as possible, and that it's relevant information. Whether it's to evacuate or stay where you're at, shelter in place, you're fine. And again, we're talking about a lot of fires so far, but we're much more likely to have a significant earthquake event here in the city that's going to impact different people and shutting down some of the infrastructure or other events. But the goal is whatever that event is, large or small, that you've got the tools to have great success with that. So again, I appreciate Paul coming out. And his presentation when I first saw it, and I had seen some other presentations, it was great to just have that perspective and not only put us at ease a little bit that, hey, we do have that infrastructure, but also have that working knowledge that, hey, we're okay, but what can we do to continue to get better, both as a city and both as a community and also as individuals. So thanks again, Paul. With that, we're going to jump right into, and I thank you, Michael Toe from Cotty Petrie Norris's Assembly Member's Office for making it today. I appreciate that. I'm going to turn it over to Delcie Hynes. Delcie's going to hit the features today as we talk about really the preparedness piece. Over 20 years of experience in emergency management, and again, she's been here, I want to say, where are we at now?
Just over a year.
Just over a year. She had her year anniversary, so we're grateful, and she hit the ground running, and she's doing a great job for us. But with that, I'll turn it over to Delcie Hynes.
So I don't block y'all. I might block y'all, but you've seen this. So as the chief said, my name is Delcie Hynes. I've been in emergency management in Orange County for just over 20 years. Prior to coming to Costa Mesa, to your question, and we'll talk a little bit about it, I worked for the County of Orange at Social Services for just over 12 years, and the Social Services Agency is responsible for coordinating mass care for the entire county. So I worked really closely with all 34 cities, including Costa Mesa, on what that looked like here in Orange County, and we've talked a little bit about that. So today I just want to talk a little bit about kind of government's role during a disaster, preparedness, and the numbers that we talk about when we talk about our community being prepared, our top hazards here in Costa Mesa, and then, as already been mentioned, how you can be ready, prepare a kit, have a plan, and how to be informed. So these slides are really small for this little screen, so I'm just going to kind of give you a little highlight. So one of the things that's come up a lot since the LA fires is, and we're hearing a lot about it still in the media, is what does the government do? What does FEMA do during a disaster? We thought it might be appropriate to address that just a little bit. So government's role pre-disaster, before something happens, here at the local, city, and county level is going to be community education. We want the community to be prepared. We want to help you get better prepared, and we do that through things like this. Hazard mitigation, like I said, we have a hazard mitigation plan here in the city, and we identify the hazards and the ways that we can mitigate the impacts to our infrastructure here in the city during a disaster. We want to ensure operational continuity, and what that means is that we as the city can continue to do our jobs after a disaster. Public safety, life safety, that we can have critical business functions operating to serve our residents. And then we also prepare and practice our emergency response plans. That's a big part of what I do. The state supports local governments in their mitigation efforts and helping with our resiliency, and then the feds support the state. The federal government is not a first responder agency. They do things like hazard mitigation grant funding. We know that for every dollar in hazard mitigation funding that we spend in advance, we save $6 to $14 in response after something happens. So post-disaster, you've heard about it, our first responders, they do life safety. That is their #1 priority. That's law, fire, and public works at times. Continuity of government, we want to maintain those critical government services. We operate what we call an emergency operations center. That is my wheelhouse. So we have an EOC at the city, and that is where we come together as the various city departments, and we manage what's going on and how we're supporting what's going on in the field. We get them resources. We do things like work with council to proclaim an emergency if we need to. That opens up different fundings. We work with the county if we need resources. We work with our other partners, as the chief mentioned. I did have the opportunity to go up as an emergency manager and support the Malibu EOC, and I worked in their EOC with their team up there to support what was going on in the field to support their community. We do things like expense tracking. You hear a lot of stuff about reimbursement. Someone's got to keep all of that paperwork. We do public alert and warning, press releases, those kinds of things. The state is going to provide resources when we get overwhelmed. Through the Master Mutual Aid Agreement, you've heard about it. Fire does this all the time, law as well, and they support one another, whether my EOC is activated, where our city EOC is activated or not. We were not activated for the fires in LA, but our law partners and our fire partners were going because they have those agreements, and that's statewide. And then the federal government, again, not a first responder, but if the state gets overwhelmed and needs resources, they can reach out to the federal government for that support. And this is the big one. We hear about this every time there's a disaster. People want to know why they only got $750 when their house burnt down. Okay, so FEMA is never going to make you whole. It is not designed for that. Immediate assistance is the $750. It changes with cost of living. It goes up. During Malibu, it was in the 600s. It changes every couple of years, I believe it is. And that is for immediate need. You can't go back home, you need to get a hotel. You evacuated with no clothes, you got to go to work tomorrow, you got to go buy something to wear. You need to go to dinner because you can't get to your kitchen. Immediate needs. That's what you need right now. You can apply. You should have it really quickly. A lot of times it comes on a card. And that's for your immediate needs. Then you'll hear about individual assistance. Individual assistance is intended to meet basic needs for uninsured and underinsured people that are impacted. Your necessary expenses. Okay? The most that you're going to qualify based on your individual need is $42,000. That's it. That's all the federal government is going to provide if your house burns down in a fire like the Palisades. What does that mean to you? That means you better have insurance. You better have renter's insurance or homeowner's insurance, and that $42,000 is going to help pay your deductible. That's what that's designed for, is to help get you back to where you need to be. It's never going to make you whole. And I don't think we do in emergency management as a nation a good enough job of educating our community about what they're going to bring to the table. And then we do something called small business loans. If you are a business owner, this is you. This is also the community. So businesses qualify for a low-interest government loan up to $2 million, again, based on need and impact, all of that. A homeowner up to $200,000 to rebuild your primary residence. If your vacation home burns down, you don't qualify for one of these. And renters up to $40,000 to replace your personal property. And those are loans. You have to pay them back, but it's low interest through the government. So just some quick information on that. So now preparedness. This is what you can do. So 51% of adults say they believe they're prepared nationwide. Of those 51, only 57% have done 3 things to help get themselves prepared. So this is the most recent data we have from the census, and these are the types of things people do. These are what we want you to do. Plan with your neighbors, practice your drills, safeguard your documents, we'll talk about that, learn your evacuation routes, we've heard about that a little bit, signed up for emergency alerts, and assembled and updated supplies, and I don't think these numbers are high enough, and in our over 60 population, it's half of this. So 5% of our 60 and older population has practiced their drills. They've practiced what they're going to do. And our job as emergency managers is to get these numbers up in our community. So these are the top 4 hazards in Costa Mesa that were identified in our hazard mitigation plan. Number 1 is earthquake. They don't happen very often, but when they do, they can be catastrophic. Human-caused hazards like terrorism, cyber terrorism is a big one right now, civil unrest. Energy and power shortage. Anybody have a backup generator at home connected to your house? We got 1. We got 1. I don't even have one, and I do this for a living. Those suckers are expensive. Severe weather, extreme heat, high winds, and heavy rain. And that's what we saw in the Palisades fire and the Eaton fire, was those high winds and high heat at the same time, and that's what kicked off that disaster. So as a resident, these are just some quick things that you can do in each thing, and I'm going to get into a little bit more, but earthquake, secure your space, insurance, insurance, insurance. Make sure you have adequate insurance. Human caused, if you see something, say something. This campaign's been around for a long time. And cybersecurity, the 2-factor authentication. Anybody hate that? I hate that. But it's so important because cybersecurity is a big thing we're dealing with right now. And this is all these are all hazards. We deal with all hazards, and that's one of them. Okay, so we heard about CERT. These are some other things that you can do as the residents. Go to the training programs that we provide. As the chief mentioned, we got, 4 spots left? 4 spots left in our next CERT offering. Starts next week. I do a block on it, a much more robust block on preparedness. And then that you learn to be kind of that force multiplier, how you can help your neighbors during a disaster. And that's what we need, because you've heard it, there's way less first responders than there are of you. On average, there's 1 firefighter for every 1,500 residents in Costa Mesa, or 1 police officer, and 3/4 of a firefighter, I believe is the number. So it may take us a little while to get to you guys, right? After a big earthquake, infrastructure's down, bridges are impacted. Please take some of the training that we offer, because it will help you help yourself during a disaster and help your neighbors, and that's really important. So prepare a kit. Everybody heard this? Prepare a kit, okay? How many have a kit? How many have parts of a kit? Parts of a kit. Okay, parts is better than none. But we want you to have a kit. What does that mean? A lot of times you hear 3 days of food and water. Well, I'm here to tell you that in Orange County, where we deal with earthquakes, Southern California, I want you to have 7 to 14 days of non-perishable food and water, because it could take a long time for us to get to you. Anybody remember a little thing called COVID? Okay. Anybody have trouble finding toilet paper and paper towels? Right? The same thing is going to happen during a big regional disaster. One thing we learned in COVID is that getting commodities where they need to be is going to be impacted. So please have a plan for what you're going to eat during a disaster. Prescription medication, this is always hard, but these are things to think about. Pet food, don't forget our furry friends, right? 1 gallon per person per day for drinking. That includes your pets. Anybody have a swimming pool? No? Okay, I got 1. Do you think you can drink your pool water? No. Okay, you have to distill pool water to drink it. Does anybody know how to distill? Okay, if you don't know how to distill, do you think you're gonna have access to Google during a big disaster to Google it? Probably not. So please don't drink your pool water. So think, or your neighbor's pool water, or your community pool water. Don't drink any pool water. First aid kit, a whistle, flashlights, batteries. These are things that we've heard year after year here in Southern California. Make a plan. Okay, so sign up for emergency alerts. Anybody feel that earthquake we just had? Did you get an alert on your phone? What you got was called a WEA, a wireless emergency alert. If you have emergency alerts for Amber Alerts and things activated on your phone, you should have got that if you were in the area. That is something that our city can do, the state can do, the federal government can do. We can launch what's called a WEA. And there's some automatic things that happen. The National Weather Service sends them. We found out that My Shake sends them. Other people send them out. Know your evacuation routes. Please have 2 ways out of your neighborhood, because one way might be blocked. And if first responders are coming in one way, you're not going to be able to get out that way. Everybody saw during the, I can't remember which fire it was, but the most recent ones in LA, I don't know if it's Palisades or Eaton or which one, but the street where everyone was trying to get out and they all had to get out and walk out. I drove down that street and they really did bulldoze those cars right out of the way. They looked like they'd been in an accident, even though they were probably lined up super neat when people left them. They had to push them out of the way. So have a way out, a second way out if you need one. I think I've talked most about this. I have a lot of resources on the back table, so I have copies of the family plan. I have copies of all kinds of things. There's a really great document. It's 21 weeks to prepare. I know it's hard to go, okay, I gotta go have food and everything for 14 days, let me run to the store. Well, that's not the reality. Nobody's got $1,000 laying around, at least I don't, to go buy all these supplies and then stockpile them, right? So the Red Cross knows that. They know that that's a big chunk. They wanted to make it bite-sized. So there's a great document over there that there's one thing you can do every week or 2 things you can do every week. And they made it manageable and small. And then if you do every week for 21 weeks, at the end of it, you have a disaster kit, which I think is a really great way to do it. It's much more manageable. It's a lot less intimidating to do a little bit at a time. So they give you a way to do that. This one, a lot of people miss. And this one is important to me. So I brought these tonight. It's a document bag, it zips closed, and in it is a list of important documents that you may not even think of. When I put this together, I was fascinated about how many things I couldn't think of. So after a big disaster or a fire, whatever it is, a lot of times what happens is we set up a disaster recovery center or a local assistance center. And you've probably seen it on the news. There was one open for a long time up in LA. And it's a place where we bring in all of the resources. So the DMV is there, the tax assessor is there, the code enforcement is there, whoever is there. Everybody is there. All the different cities were there, the universities were there. So if your house burned down, you can go to this one-stop shop and you can request a new driver's license and a new passport and however many years they give you for free of your tax returns. And you can get a new diploma. If you went to one of the universities close by, they were all there and they'd reprint your diploma, all these different things. But wouldn't it be great when you're evacuating if you had a document bag that had all of that stuff and you could grab it and go? Or better yet, you put it together and you stored it at work, or you put it all on a thumb drive and gave it to a friend or somebody out of town so that you don't have to recreate all of that stuff. So it will save you time. It'll make your life so much easier if you do not have to go wait in line for hours to visit every single booth for 3 or 4 days to try to recreate all those important documents. So I wanted to put together something easy that the community could take with them tonight and just do one thing. Go through the list and just shove everything in that little bag, and then you have all of it together. And that to me is really important. I talked a little bit about it. Emergency alerting in Costa Mesa. This is one thing that we do a little bit of, but we need to make a little bit more robust. So is everybody signed up to receive Nixle alerts? Okay, if you're not, in a minute I'm going to show you how to do that, and you can take out your phone and do it right now. But the other thing we have here in Orange County is something called Alert OC. This is a county mass notification system. Anybody heard of Alert OC? Okay, all 34 cities have access to Alert OC along with the county. And that is going to be for emergency alerts. We only have about 6,000 residents in Costa Mesa that have actually voluntarily signed up and given us their cell phone number. Anybody in here still have a landline? 2, 3. You're the only ones that are going to get our alerts if you haven't signed up. So what Alert OC gives us, and I think even Nixle as well, is access to what we call E911 data. That's the data, like back in the day, kids, you're not going to know, but the rest of us know. You pick up the phone and you say, I'm having an emergency, and the dispatcher knows where you are because it's connected to your address, right? So we have all the businesses that still have landline phones and the houses that have landline phones, but if you carry around a cell phone and you're not registered for Alert OC, we cannot reach you during a disaster. We can send you a WIA, that big one that you got, the regional one. The problem with WIAs is the use is very restrictive. I can't use it if just a little part of the city's impacted. It has to be something big that I'm sending to a big group of people. So we want you to sign up for Alert OC, and we want you to register for Nixle. Nixle is more day-to-day. You're going to get more day-to-day stuff, but Alert OC we can use for emergency alerting. And then please don't turn off emergency notifications on your cell phone. If you don't get Amber Alerts, you've got it disabled. Go into your settings and turn it back on, because that's how you get those wireless alerts that override everything, and we can push it out based on a region. We can push it out statewide, countywide, citywide, if something big enough is going on, and we want to get critical information to you. And then the EAS system is still around. It used to be K-Wave. If anybody remembers K-Wave. Now it's everywhere. We can override through some of these platforms. We can override your television or your radio and give, you hear that terrible tone that beeps. We still use that system. So this is how you sign up. So you take out your cell phone and you open a new message and you dial 888-777, and in the message area, put in your zip code, whichever zip code you live in Costa Mesa, and hit send. And then it'll say, are you sure you want to opt in? And you say yes. And that gives us the ability to send you Nixle alerts. And then to sign up for Alert OC, you go to alertoc.gov, and you have to actually create an account. So if you need help with that, I brought a computer and I can help you with that afterwards. But please do that. And I think that's the end of what I have to say. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you guys being here. Does anybody have any questions? Questions for me? Okay, I'm going to be here after.
Any questions? And again, we're all going to be here to talk, and any questions you might have after. I just want to, again, give it up again for Delcie Hynes. Also want to take the opportunity to thank, if you see our fire cadets in the light blue uniform shirts, it's a product and expansion of our team of tapping into the community. And these are all individuals, in the community. They go to the area hospitals. They go to the area high schools. So we have Mustangs. We've got our Estancia folks. We've got Newport Harbor. We've got Modern Day. So it's a great opportunity to involve our students who are part of our cadet program, and it's headed up by Captain Elizor Maldonado, again, class of 2001, Estancia High School. Thanks again to all of our speakers tonight, Mesa Water, Paul Shoenberger, Caitlin Norris for being here. They'll be around as well. Our entire fire team, my public safety partner and good friend, Chief Lawrence, for making it as he's doing his encore last few days here. But again, thanks to everyone that was here, and thank you to the community for being here, because that's really what it ultimately comes down to, and we look forward to continuing to do this. This is the second of a few different opportunities we're going to have to get out and continue to get the messaging and have this opportunity. But thank you for being here tonight, and again, we'll be around, so thank you so much. Have a great evening.